Welcome to the Authority File. I'm Bill Mickey, your host and the editorial director at Choice. We're back with another series, and before we get started, I'm extremely excited to share that the Authority File is now an award-winning podcast. That's right, we were named Best B2B Podcast at the 2023 Publisher Podcast Awards. We'll link to it in the show notes for this episode, and you can also check it out at publisherpodcastawards.com. Many thanks to Media Voices, the producer of the event, for the recognition, and of course to the amazing team here at Choice. In this 4-part series, which is brought to you with support from Sage, I'll be speaking with 4 guests on what seems to be an ever-evolving goal: student success in higher education. We examine the scaffolding that supports it, including how that has changed over the years, the library's role in driving student success, how to partner up across the institution, and finally, we'll look ahead at how we might see the concept evolve even further. Joining me on the program are Ceceilia Parnther, Assistant Professor of Higher Education Leadership and Coordinator of Doctoral Programs at St. John's University; María Evelia Emerson, Student Success Librarian at University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign; Amber Eakin, Instructional Librarian at Strayer University; and Andrew Boney, Executive Editor at Sage. In this 3rd episode, we examine the importance of partnering for student success, including who the key stakeholders are, technical approaches to engaging in partnerships, and the importance of follow-through. All right, so partnerships. I suppose there's room for all kinds of innovative partnerships across campus, but, who do you consider to be key stakeholder partners for the library in supporting student success? And Maria, let's go back to you on that.
Yeah, this is a great question. It really depends, I think, on your institution
Right.
and who you're working with. For me at University of Illinois, I think I like to work with the advisors a lot, and I also like to work with our culture houses a lot. I think these are people who see the challenges that students face firsthand better than the librarians are going to. And they're going to see them, not only their academic challenges, but oftentimes their personal challenges as well. I also think that students are going to open up to these different partners more, because they're going to know them better.
Right.
So I mean, I've seen it, students, they do better when they have a stronger sense of belonging on campus, and that can be found, with a group of friends, but also they're going to find it with mentors and advisors and professors. So they're going to open up to them in ways that they're not going to with the librarians. So having strong partnerships in those areas for me is really important, because they're going to be able to talk to me about different things that their students have talked to them about that they might not talk to me about.
Right. Amber, how about you?
Faculty. We tailor the majority of our instruction sessions for individual courses. And I've found this to be the most effective method for supporting student success. I've noticed that when I partner with a faculty member and they have a positive experience, they start to encourage their peers to work with us as well. We call them our library champions, and they're really important as a bridge to supporting those students. They are the ones who get us in front of the students, and we need their support.
Mm-hmm. Ceceilia, I mean, does that ring true for you? Yeah.
110%. When I have great experiences, I am not only implementing more of those relationships in my other classes, but absolutely with my colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
I would also offer that some of this is dependent on context. So, for different disciplines, I think that relationship looks very different. I teach in writing intensive courses, and so there's something that feels very natural, that I don't think may always feel natural, even though there are lots of resources and lots of abilities to collaborate. For some of my colleagues who are in disciplines who maybe require less writing, or they're looking at data in different ways, and they're still many resources and partnerships. Of course, with the students, I think I would also offer student services and support units. There are many grant funded programs that are dedicated to supporting students, whether through tutoring, peer mentorship, um, through working with students of underrepresented identity on campus. And Maria had talked about that with the culture houses
Hmm.
and organizations that she works with. But I would say that that is an opportunity that is really promising, both in terms of securing additional resources for students and for libraries, and also just forging relationships that we're talking about legacy building and
Mm.
in those relationships. Um, and I think the last thing that I would share is that there are just so many opportunities when we think about the innovation that is coming right now, with information technology, opportunities for folks who are interested in open educational resources to really sit down and have these conversations in a collaborative way. That starts to build a foundation so that our policies and procedures really include the library as one of those immediate resources that feels natural for the student experience.
Excellent. Perfect. And then Andrew, I'm curious for your perspective on this as well. I mean, partnerships obviously kind of mean something a little different from your end of the equation, but I guess when you're looking at your faculty and library partners, you know, what are you looking for as a publisher in terms of looking for some really nice energy between those two constituents?
So just speaking from my own personal perspective, I want libraries and I want faculty to see us as more than just transactional
Mm.
partners. Amber, what you said really resonated with me, and I've found myself in this situation many times when I'll talk to a faculty member and they'll say, "Oh, I really wish that I had a collection of business cases," and this is a true example. And it's like, well, actually, you do. And there's nothing worse than seeing a product, any kind of resource that you have worked on for a long time, not get used. And so it is definitely in our best interest, both commercially and for a lot of people, particularly in editorial, personally, to have our resources used. And I think in that way. Again, just speaking for Sage, I think we can be a tool and a partner in helping to build relationships between libraries and faculty, because we are having conversations with both,
Both.
and we are seeing both in person and virtually many faculty and librarians that I think there is more that we can do to help bring those groups together to ultimately highlight the great work that libraries are doing.
Hmm. Excellent. My next question kind of riffs a little bit off something Cecilia was getting to, and that was, sort of the approach to partnerships and sort of understanding that the context around each of those partnerships. And Amber and Maria, I'm curious to hear, sort of tactically, how do you initiate partnerships and not just initiate them, but create successful ones? What has worked for you in terms of your approach to creating that partnership? And Maria, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, with initiating partnerships, some of it is just, you're emailing, you're reaching out and those ways. I think it's also important though to go to different events on campus,
Hmm.
and just so you can have these organic meetings, and show that you're interested in the things that they're working on. With with having successful partnerships, I think a lot of it is not going in acting like you know exactly what they need. It's really important to ask them what they would like to see in the partnerships, what they think their students would benefit from, And that way you can come to something, you can develop something together instead of it just being like, this is what I can bring you, and that's it. So, and that way too, you're learning more, they're learning more about the library and the different things we can do. And I'm learning more about their work and what they can do. So that, I think those are the more successful partnerships. It's just going in and meeting halfway instead of just going in and acting like, this is what you need. Let me do it for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like there's a definite networking kind of element to that. Okay. And then Amber, you had discussed sort of this. It sounding like you take a very proactive role in terms of bringing people together and talking about the needs of everyone in that group. How does that work for you?
You can't build it and hope they come.
Right.
That approach doesn't work. As Andrew commented, we often see resources that go unused because people may not know that they exist. So my strategy was asking for meetings with different leaders and different teams where a partnership might make sense, like working with faculty leaders or curriculum designers. This gives me a chance to understand what their priorities are. Like Maria said, I don't want to assume that I know what they need. So once I
Hmm.
learn their priority, I'm able to share, here is what we can do, here is what we already have. Here's how you can optimize what we're able to offer. And then that allows me to follow up with them as well to share the success from our collaboration.
Excellent. And I'll stick with you, Amber. And so how important is it to maintain that sort of that follow up aspect of the partnership? I mean, how are you doing that, and what are you sharing?
You have to follow up.
Right.
You absolutely have to. One strategy that I use with faculty leaders is sending a summary email every other week. It is very brief and it links to a dashboard that shares additional metrics. But I highlight things like, what classes have we recently attended? What faculty have partnered with us? This shows them how impactful their work is. And honestly, it keeps my name and the library in their inboxes
Hmm.
pretty regularly. So we are sort of top of mind with faculty members as well. After we have a session, we all of the library instructors send an email to that faculty member, thanking them for the opportunity and sharing specific resources that could support whatever we discussed in the session with their students. And then once a quarter, I email those faculty to say, hey, you invited us in last term. Please invite us back for this upcoming term, so that we are constantly reminding them, here's how well this worked last time. Let's keep doing this.
Excellent. And then Maria, does that sound pretty familiar to you? Is that
Yeah,
yeah?
Amber did great with that. And I will say too, I think, that follow up, it's like any relationship. To have this successful relationship, it's showing you're invested and that you're listening,
Mm.
and that you're wanting to continue the work with them.
Yeah. And then Cecilia, I imagine that's sort of appreciated on your end as well.
Very much. The
Yeah.
best relationships that I've had, and continue to have, are that you find that person who you're able to make a connection with,
Mm.
and you have this great experience. And the next time that I have the opportunity to um, have, a librarian in the class, or to do some sort of team event with the Center for Teaching and Learning, or just make sure that I am listing someone as a resource go to, it's always my partner there, and mine is Catherine here, and she is fantastic. But it had a lot to do with that initial outreach. Like, I felt like someone thought that we could work well together, and that I had the opportunity to get to know her and to learn more about the resources, because I'm learning too in that situation. I think that's a really important point, is that every setup is different, all of the needs are different, and so we need to develop that relationship. So now we have a fantastic relationship, and it's really been about that ongoing communication.
You just heard from Ceceilia Parnther, Assistant Professor of Higher Education Leadership and Coordinator of Doctoral Programs at St. John's University, María Evelia Emerson, Student Success Librarian at University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, Amber Eakin, Instructional Librarian at Strayer University, and Andrew Boney, Executive Editor at Sage. This series is brought to you with support from Sage. Join us next week as we do some looking ahead and consider which lessons we learned during COVID that will likely stay with us and which traditional approaches to student success should be changed or even discarded. As always, underwriting opportunities for the Authority File podcast are directed by Choice's Advertising Director, Pam Marino, and all of our episodes are produced and edited by Choice's digital media producer, Sabrina Kofer, with support from digital media assistant, Ashley Roy. That's all for this week. Thanks for joining us.